Okay, so Marvel's Wolverine releases September 15th, and I've been watching the community reaction to the recent gameplay footage with genuine interest, because something is happening here that I think deserves a more honest conversation than it's currently getting. Not the stuff most people are complaining about, not the Sentinel boss fight looking a bit basic, not the red scent trail, not the linearity. Those are all valid surface level observations, but they're not the thing I want to talk about. The problem I want to talk about is deeper than any of that. And I genuinely don't think many people are naming it clearly. So let me give you the context first. Insomniac's community director James Stevenson went on X last week and said, and I'm reading this directly, "I think the wild way this algorithm amplifies and forces negativity upon you has me reconsidering my philosophy on telling devs to look or post here. It's a relentless onslaught that I cannot believe is good for anyone's mental health nor representative. And I have sympathy for that. I do. The internet is brutal, and the algorithm does amplify the worst takes. And look, previews from journalists who played 2.5 hours of the game were largely positive. In 2.5 hours, they counted only 6 QTE sequences. The combat has combos, skill trees, different playstyles. The rage system sounds genuinely interesting. The Sabretooth team-up finishes look brutal in exactly the right way. The game is probably going to be good. Insomniac's track record is exceptional. Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Ratchet, and Clank rift apart. These are not people who make bad games. But here's the thing. The online reaction to that gameplay footage, even accounting for algorithm amplification, even accounting for internet negativity being internet negativity, was unusually strong. Third most pre-ordered game on the US PlayStation Store, and still the target of what a developer called a relentless onslaught. That gap between pre-order numbers and community sentiment is interesting, and I think it's pointing at something real. Here's the actual problem nobody is naming: Sony formula fatigue. Wolverine is a deeply violent, morally complicated character. He's been through genocide. He's killed people he loved. He carries 150 years of trauma and guilt and rage in a body that won't let him die. He is not a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He is not a father protecting his son. He is something genuinely dark and genuinely difficult to translate into a feel-good blockbuster. And the gameplay footage, the chase sequences, the corridor traversal, the glowing trail pointing you where to go, the scripted set pieces, looks like a Sony first-party game. Which is not an insult. Sony first-party games are polished, cinematic, brilliantly produced, but they have a specific grammar, a specific feel, a specific level of hand-holding and spectacle and guided experience that works perfectly for Spider-Man and works perfectly for God of War. I'm not sure it works for Wolverine. Wolverine's identity is built on being unleashed, feral, unpredictable. The whole point of Logan is that he's a weapon that was never fully under control, not even his own. The comic book runs that define the character, Wolverine by Frank Miller, Old Man Logan, Enemy of the State, are not cinematic experiences. They're brutal and ugly, and sometimes uncomfortable. The footage we've seen is beautiful. It's clearly expensive. It is very, very Insomniac. What I'm not sure it is Wolverine. And this is the thing game director Mike Daly kind of acknowledged without fully acknowledging. He said the negative reaction was a good problem to have because it shows how invested fans are. He said negative reactions come with the territory for a first-party PlayStation game based on an established Marvel character. Both of those things are true. And also, they're slightly deflecting from the specific concern. The specific concern isn't, this is too violent, or this is too easy, or this looks bad. The specific concern is, does this game actually feel like Wolverine, or does it feel like Insomniac made a Wolverine-flavored version of what they already know how to make? That's a harder question to answer than, is the combat deep enough? Because it's not about the mechanics. It's about the soul of the thing. Now look, I want to be fair here because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Insomniac has earned enormous amounts of benefit of the doubt. Spider-Man 2018 was better than it had any right to be. Spider-Man 2 had problems, but the moment Miles and Peter team up for the first time is one of the best superhero moments I've ever played. These people know what they're doing. And maybe Wolverine's story goes places the trailers aren't showing. Maybe Madripoor in Japan and the darker corners of Logan's past give the game a brutality and weight that the polished action sequences are deliberately hiding from previews. Maybe the Nightmare Gates challenges and the rage system and the adaptation module build something genuinely complex underneath the cinematic surface. Maybe. But the problem nobody is fully talking about is that the footage we've seen doesn't show us that version of the game. It shows us a very well-made action game that happens to feature a character with claws. And Wolverine deserves more than that. He's one of the most compelling characters in the history of comic books. 150 years old, a weapon, a man, something in between. If Insomniac pulls off the version of Wolverine that those two things together deserve, September 15th is going to be one of the best gaming days of the year. If they made a great game that happens to star Wolverine without fully capturing what makes him different from every other superhero, that's a more subtle disappointment. And somehow, that would be worse.